Hello, everyone. I'm Asya Hawk. I'm MBO's VP of Talent Marketing. I can see people starting to join and the numbers are ticking up, so we'll give just a few minutes for everyone to get online. So excited to have you here and to be helping to moderate this webinar with Keaton Swett and Linda Mann. As folks are joining, what I would like to do is give you a little bit of background on MBO for those that are new to our webinar series. So just so you know a little bit about who we are as an organization, at MBO, our mission is to make it easier for enterprise organizations and top independent professionals to work together. We've been at this for more than 20 years, leading the charge to keep the independent economy moving forward. And we're really committed to advancing the next way of working. And with our recent acquisition of MindSumo, it's another way that we show that we're far from done in our journey. And we're continuing to look at new and innovative ways to serve independent professionals and the organizations that are seeking to work with them. I know we have a fair number of people still joining, so I'll talk a little bit about the fact that this is not the first of our webinar learning events. And in fact, I'm pleased to share that we recently launched a new learning channel. This is a place where you can actually go and look at our past content that's really suited to independent professional business owners and consultants, contractors. It's available through our events page on webinars/independence. And it's a great place to go and view this video once the event is done. If you ever want to go back and find it, it will be archived there. Also a great place to look at our other learning events curated by many of our in-house industry experts as well as outside experts. We also have a way to keep in touch as we're building our new set of events, and that is at mbopartners.com/events, which is where you can go to see what we'll be talking about in the future and certainly check back for our 2021 content series, which will be very powerful. I'm going to just suggest now that we move on to a couple of housekeeping items as we see the registrants tick up. So in terms of the way that the event will work, we'll have Linda and Keaton speak about the content, but we're welcoming Q&As through the use of the Q&A button. This is in the bottom of your Zoom webinar tab. It's all the way to the right, and it shows these two little icons for Q&A, and we recommend that you use that to submit a question as you think about it. However, we'll hold and look at all the questions, and I will help curate a Q&A with Keaton and Linda at the end. So just wanted to let you know. We also, of course, will be providing a recording to all participants after the webinar, so be assured that you can go back and listen as you think about the content that we're sharing. What I'd like to do now is to actually hand it over to Linda Mann, and she will introduce both herself and Keaton and talk to you about the event today. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Asya. Hi, I'm Linda Mann. I'm our Chief Experience Officer. I oversee our customer experience and all the various offerings that we provide our buyers and providers like yourselves. I'm really excited to introduce Keaton and MindSumo to you. I know there's always been a lot of buzz about crowdsourcing and innovation, but what does it really mean to you, and what is the power of this type of open innovation platform, and how does it fit with MBO's platform? So that's a lot of what we'll cover. Back in the end of September, MBO made the decision to acquire MindSumo, and we did that because we really see it as an important part of our overall platform vision. And our vision is to transcend ways of working to enhance the well-being of people and businesses throughout the world. And we're noticing that we're seeing our enterprise clients shift from purchasing services or people to purchasing results. And we see individuals like you eager to share your expertise and explore innovative ways to solve your clients' problems. So it's really becoming a lot more about problem solving. And if you look at a recent study that MIT did, the Sloan School of Management, it talks about innovation being a really key part of the modern business model. And back in 2013, only 30% of companies went beyond their own network of partners for ideas. And now 83% draw on other sources like crowdsourcing, think tanks, universities. So very consistent with what MindSumo delivers. As part of MBO, MindSumo is not only going to help companies drive innovation, as they always have, but now MindSumo can bring those innovations, those innovative solutions to life through our communities of 70,000 independent professionals like yourself. So it really allows us to solve the entire life cycle of ideation to actually realizing the execution of the idea. So now I'm going to turn it over to Keaton. He's going to talk a lot more about this really cool, powerful innovation platform and what it means to all of you.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. And it's nice to be with all of you today. I'm Keaton Swett, and as Linda mentioned, I'm one of the original founders of MindSumo. We started the company back in 2011. This was in the Bay Area, where we kind of got our legs under us, grew the company there, and then I operated as CEO up until the acquisition, which took place this past September with MBO Partners. So very excited about this new path for MindSumo with MBO. And today, as part of the webinar, there are a number of topics that we will be discussing, but really I want to kind of walk you through a little bit about crowdsourcing just to make sure everyone is up to speed in general before we get into the specific MindSumo dynamics and how our platform operates, and most importantly, how our platform is going to be able to bring some unique and very powerful capabilities to all of you as members of the MBO community. And so before we kind of dive into the MindSumo specific meat of the content that we're going to be discussing, I want to talk a little bit about crowds more generally. If you think about the word crowd, for a lot of us, there's probably a slightly negative connotation with that word, actually. When we think about a large physical crowd, it's an area that's cramped, it's a little bit chaotic, not necessarily the environment that you want to be in. I know this is certainly true for myself. For example, Black Friday shopping, this is probably my absolute worst nightmare, just the idea of being crammed into a store with hundreds of people jostling all around you. There's not a lot of order that comes out of this type of an environment. But what I want to talk about today is not so much the physical crowd, but I want to focus on the virtual crowd and how using crowdsourcing and tapping into the virtual crowd can really be transformational for companies that are looking to bring kind of new and unseen innovations and insights into their organization. And so we're going to be discussing how MindSumo has helped hundreds of companies do this, and how hopefully it can also act as a tool which will be able to help you guys do this as well in the work that you do with your clients. But before we launch into that, I do want to give you a quick story/history lesson, because this is one of my absolute favorite examples of crowdsourcing to really help highlight some of the power that it can have. So this cheerful gentleman is Francis Galton. He was a British polymath who lived in the early 1900s. And the story that I want to talk about harkens from a time when he went to a fair in Plymouth, England. And there was a contest going on at this fair where basically they brought out a big bull and said, anyone who can get closest to guessing the weight of this bull, we will give it to you at the end of the fair. So as you can imagine, everyone was excited about this. There were lots of guesses that were submitted. But Francis Galton was much more interested in getting his hands on the totality of all of those guesses instead of any individual one. So at the end of the day, he went up to the organizers of this event and said, could I get my hands on all of those guesses so I can run some analyses on them? And they said, sure. They handed them over to him, and he went back and he ran some analyses. And you may kind of know where this is heading, but interestingly enough, after he had a chance to review all of these guesses, what he found was that by looking at the average of these 800 crowd guesses, the average actually came within 1 pound of the weight of this bull. And this was a much, much more accurate guess than when you look at the person who actually won the contest. And I think that this is such a cool story because it highlights how, even though you may think by going to the crowd, you may get so many different answers that it's all going to be noise, there's real power in being able to identify solutions and trends and insights that can come from a big group of people all working together to solve a problem. And that's really what I'm excited to talk about, is showing you how MindSumo has done that and hopefully how it's going to be able to do that for you as well.
Thanks, Keaton. I love the bull story. So now what we want to do is transition a little, now that you've had your history lesson, and talk about how does MindSumo unleash the power of that crowd? What is the approach? For example, what types of problems does MindSumo help clients solve? Who solves the problem, right? Who are those problem solvers? And, you know, who are the companies and the clients and the people who have those problems? And also give us some insight into what is the process to manage that crowd and start with a really vague problem or question or problem, right? And then end up with some really compelling ideas. So I'm gonna hand it back over to you, Keaton.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. And that's exactly right. You know, I'm excited now just to get into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of how MindSumo works and the types of companies that we have worked with. And so at our core, MindSumo is a crowdsourcing platform which connects companies to an audience that we've built of over 500,000 millennial and Gen Z participants who we call solvers. And we do this through a medium that we call a challenge. And so the way you can think of this challenge is an online contest, you know, similar to the one that we talked about with Francis Galton, where companies will put a project up with a, you know, kind of stating what the project is and asking for a certain set of deliverables. And then we blast that out to the crowd and say, have at it. Let's see, you know, may the best idea win. And the reason why we focused specifically on the millennial and the Gen Z market, there are a couple of reasons. So first off, when we first started MindSumo back in 2011, I was pretty fresh out of college with my two co-founders, and so we thought it would be really cool to initially start this platform, which was very geared towards ideation and crowdsourcing from a university environment. And so most of our early users came from that university setting, you know, undergrad students, graduate students. It was an audience that we understood, that we felt like brought a lot of creativity to these types of projects, and that was also dramatically underutilized by corporations. And so we kind of grew out of that initial university focus to encapsulate a broader millennial and Gen Z focus as far as the demographics that we really went after for our user base. And so when you think about this total number of over 500,000 problem solvers, you can generally think of it from the ages of 18 to kind of mid 30s. That's the target demographic that we are going after. And you know, in addition to this audience that we've compiled that companies are able to use for these crowdsourcing challenges, I want to talk a little bit about what a challenge really focuses on as far as, you know, what the challenges look like. So there are a lot of different crowdsourcing applications that exist out there, but where MindSumo sits is at the top of the funnel when you think about innovation. We're talking about kind of broad umbrella questions and problems that companies want to ideate on and brainstorm on and kind of get preliminary mock-ups and designs for. So it's not going to be synthesizing a molecule. It's not going to be really far down the innovation funnel when you're talking more about implementation and execution. We're talking about the big thorny questions around, you know, what is this going to look like in 10 years, or how can we create this type of a project? Those are the types of high-level ideation and innovation focused challenges that really thrive and do the best on MindSumo. And then as far as the companies that use our platform, we've had a lot of success working with some of the best companies in the world. In fact, over 100 of the Fortune 500 have used MindSumo to launch challenges. And the exciting thing is, it's pretty agnostic as it relates to the industries and the different sectors where MindSumo operates. And a lot of this is because of the diversity of the user base that we've been able to build over the years. So whether it's needing to find engineers who can help with an engineering problem, or business and marketing folks who are able to help with those types of problems, we're really able to kind of span the spectrum of companies and problems because of this very vast and diverse user base that we have. As far, you know, if I had to kind of narrow in on some of the sectors that are most popular on the MindSumo platform, definitely CPG is one of them. We do a lot in banking and finance as well. Healthcare, automotive, professional services. So there are certain sectors that are more, I guess, more in tune with using MindSumo. But overall, chances are if a company comes to us with the right type of challenge, we'll be able to figure out a way to make it work for the MindSumo platform. And then as far as how an actual challenge works and what that process looks like, so we as MindSumo are very we make very sure that we kind of help throughout the entire experience. We don't leave the client out on their own to do this in a self-serve capacity, but we try to really engage with them through the account management that we provide throughout the process. And that starts at the very beginning with actually coming up with an idea for a challenge. When a company comes to us and says, we have a potential topic which we think would be good, we as MindSumo will actually take that seed of an idea and we'll be the ones who turn that into a full-blown draft to show them what that could look like, and to also leverage our experience, having done almost 2,000 of these challenges, so that we can really help curate what's going to work well, what's going to engage with our audience, and what's ultimately going to have success and produce results. And so once we have that draft for the client, we also take care of kind of working with them to give them an editorial role to be able to provide feedback and make any sort of edits that they might need to make. And then once everyone is happy with that challenge draft, we also manage the launch and the distribution of the challenge. And that's very important because sometimes clients will come to us wanting to really target a specific audience. That may be people who live in a certain area, a certain kind of sub-slice of our user base. And we can do that type of targeting and filtering on the platform, which is an important feature for our clients. But once the challenge is up and running, our users will have typically anywhere from 7 to 30 days to be able to join the challenge, submit their solution, and kind of throw their hat in the ring, so to speak, to see if they'll be chosen as a winner. And at the end of that period, what happens is the company in this whole process is able to review and rate and comment on these submissions through a dashboard that's provided to them. And then once the challenge closes, we as MindSumo reward the top participants with cash prizes, because we have visibility into how those ratings are happening, so that once it's finished, we can press publish, and those top winners, they'll receive cash prizes through the MindSumo platform. And then the company is able to keep the IP of those solutions so that they can actually go on and implement those ideas. And we'll talk a little bit more with some specific case studies about how this has worked, in the past. What I want to talk about briefly now is just giving you some examples of what a challenge topic actually looks like. Something that we hear a lot of times when we're talking to companies is they'll say, this sounds like a cool idea, but can you make it a little more real for me? Give me an example of a challenge that someone has done. So all of these titles that you see on this slide, these are actual challenges that we have run in the past. So for example, in the bottom right-hand corner, what does the shower of the future look like? That was a challenge we did with Delta Faucet, because they were looking to redesign their shower heads, and they wanted to throw that out to our crowd. And so that was the idea that they came up with. Over on the left-hand side in the middle, Toyota, how can we make vehicle ownership more attractive to millennials? Toyota started to see, hey, everyone's using Uber, everyone's using Lyft. This is going to hurt our business model. We need to figure out what we can do to try to get that millennial audience to consider vehicle ownership, or else we're going to be in trouble. Or right below that, Ernst & Young, how do you want to use AR and VR in the next 10 plus years? This was based off of a project they were doing with one of their clients, and trying to imagine the future of AR and VR and how it's going to change consumer interactions. And so you can tell that these are big topics. They're big, they're broad, and they really kind of afford a lot of room for creativity and for creative thinking and innovation. And those are the types of challenges that are going to have the most success on the platform. We also get a lot of questions around kind of using our community and why that would be a benefit or a value add to a company. And one thing that I want to highlight is when it comes to crowdsourcing, there are some really interesting academic findings that have come out of some of the best universities in the world. For example, the Laboratory for Innovation Science at Harvard is a lab which dedicates a lot of its work specifically to crowdsourcing and open innovation, and trying to understand the impact that it has at companies, and also some of the unique things about it, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. And this is one of my favorite quotes from a paper that they came out with, which says that the further a problem is from a solver's expertise, the more likely they were to solve it in a crowdsourcing interaction. And when you think about that, that may be counterintuitive. But the interesting thing is crowdsourcing has shown time and time again that sometimes it takes really getting out of somebody's preconceived biases, being entrenched in an industry for a number of years, to be able to come up with a novel and interesting and thoughtful solution, which you wouldn't necessarily find if it was just you kind of with your colleagues in a room thinking about something. There are some really, really cool examples of this, both from the MindSumo platform and other open innovation contests that have happened all over the world. But this is really important to remember when it comes to crowdsourcing, because you may think, I'm doing an engineering project, I only want engineers. But hey, maybe it's going to be the humanities person or the marketing person who has an idea that can really spark a solution which you never would have thought of if you had just stuck with kind of the usual cohort of people that you're used to. And so that's kind of the last note that I want to leave you with in this section about MindSumo. Just the idea that there's always going to be an interesting way to look at a new project if it's someone who's coming kind of outside of that experience. And that's one of the really cool things about a platform like MindSumo. We bring that type of interaction to these companies.
Cool. So now that you've had a lesson on crowds, you understand the process for how MindSumo harnesses the power of the crowds, we want to talk about what's in it for you, right? How can you use MindSumo to be more relevant to your clients, gain access to more clients? How can this position you better to do really cool work and also allow you to stretch your own creative muscles through participating in these various types of activities? Back to you, Keaton.
Yep, exactly. Because, hopefully you came to this webinar today, not only wanting to learn more about crowdsourcing, but wanting to figure out, is there a way that I can use this in the work that I do? And the short answer to that question is definitely yes. When we look at MindSumo and all the thousands of challenges that we have run, nearly 20% of all those challenges have actually been run by consultants. That could be a massive consulting firm like an Accenture or a Deloitte, or that could be a very small consulting shop, or even an IC, just an individual person who is running a challenge on behalf of their clients. And there are a number of reasons why MindSumo can be such a valuable tool and resource for consultants, but just a few that I want to highlight. One is that many of our consulting clients use MindSumo as a way to kick off a project that they're running with their client. When they're hired to do work, they say, hey, before we really go down any one road, let's do a MindSumo challenge so that we can get a whole bunch of interesting ideas and insights to help inform the strategy that we're going to build to try to solve whatever it is that you need. Because, starting off like that, it's almost like, a brainstorming session on steroids, but being able to pull in an outside crowd to help with that. That's a really powerful way to get the client excited if you are a consultant, to show them all the different potential avenues you could explore with something. And MindSumo acts as a great resource and kind of vehicle to make that happen. Another thing is just the idea of being the innovation expert for your clients if you are a consultant, because innovation, we know it's a buzzword, but it's a buzzword for a reason. It's so important at all of these companies, and they're constantly thinking, how can we be innovating more? What is the competition doing? What are we missing out on? What are we not thinking about? And so by using a platform like MindSumo and bringing a platform like MindSumo to your clients, you are really positioning yourself as the innovation expert. You are showing them that you are looping in additional resources and capabilities that they wouldn't be using if it wasn't for you. And so that paints you as the consultant in a really cool and innovative light. And then the last thing is, a lot of our consulting clients actually use MindSumo to help them win new business as well. And the way they do this is they build the challenge process into the actual sales pitch or proposal that they are kind of serving up to a client. And so just to give you an example of this, we did a project with a consulting firm that was trying to land a deal or a project with a big shoe brand. And so as part of this sales pitch, what they did was they did a challenge all about kind of redesigning the new sneaker that they launched on MindSumo. They were able to get a couple hundred really unique and interesting solutions out of that. And then they took all of that output, turned it into a very compelling infographic. And then through the sales pitch, they served that up to this potential client and said, look at all the work that we've already started to do, trying to understand what is out there, the different areas we could explore for this project, and real concrete ideas that we now own because of this challenge that we did that we can start exploring with you. They ended up getting the deal. So hopefully MindSumo played a part in that. But it's just another way that you can really make the proposal process stand out as you're talking to clients, instead of just kind of the typical document you might share with them. If you can have something compelling from an actual challenge and use crowdsourcing to kind of convey to them why you could be the right person to work with them on a project, that's really compelling stuff. And so quickly, what I want to do is just go through a few examples to show you in action how this has happened with some of our consulting clients who are either independents or maybe it's a couple of people. And this first one is a challenge that a client of ours, it's a small consulting shop, 2 or 3 people, that they were able to do with Unilever. And so first, before I go into it, I want you to notice this is how our challenges are structured, with a brief section and then the deliverables. And so the challenge brief specifies, any sort of background information that our users need to be able to submit a solution to the challenge. And then the deliverables, that's what specifically they need to submit in order to be considered for potential prizes. And so this small consulting shop that we worked with, they were trying to land Unilever as a big client. They had been working them for months and months. And then we got in contact with them and they said, hey, we're trying to get this deal around a new sleep product that Unilever wants to come out with. Could you help us create a challenge which we can then use to show them to help us see if we can get this deal and get them on our list as one of our big new clients. And so we did this sleep challenge with them. This actually led to 2 additional challenges because Unilever was really excited by the results that they got. And that consultant, that pair of consultants, they were able to do all of that subsequent work because they really excited Unilever with this initial kind of foray into crowdsourcing. So that's one example. Another one, this was another team of 2 consultants that we worked with. And similarly, they were trying to do a project with Procter & Gamble. They had been approached by a team at Procter & Gamble who was really interested in exploring kind of open innovation and crowdsourcing, but had never done it in the past. And so we were able to work with them to kind of position them, like I said before, as that innovation expert, to show that they could be the ones to bring this new capability into the company. And this team specifically was looking for new all-natural, names for new all-natural ingredients for hair and skincare. And you'll see at the bottom, they actually ended up getting 11 concepts from this that they went on further pursue. And again, this resulted in more subsequent deals for those consultants as well. And then just really quickly to kind of tie a bow on it, one more example for you with Kimberly-Clark. This was actually an IC, just an independent consultant who was working with Kimberly-Clark on a packaging challenge. And the interesting thing here is the consultant himself, he wasn't a packaging designer or anything. And initially, Kimberly-Clark wanted to hire out a very expensive design firm as part of the project to do this type of work, to see if they could get interesting packaging designs for these products of theirs. But the consultant recommended that they try crowdsourcing instead. And so this was a way for them to not only get the concepts that they wanted to eventually pursue, but it also saved the client a lot of money because working with MindSumo was a much cheaper option, which produced the same kinds of results that they were hoping for. So just trying to give you a flavor for how independent consultants have used our platform in the past to a lot of success and with a lot of really great and big companies. And so you're probably asking yourself, okay, so if I wanted to use MindSumo, if I wanted to build it into my capabilities for my clients, how could I get started doing that? And really the first thing is all about that challenge topic. We talked about earlier how that's the first step in the process. And for MindSumo, when we get a challenge topic from a client, there's upwards of a 40% chance that that challenge is actually going to get launched. And so as you're thinking about the clients that you work with, and as you're thinking about the projects that you're working on, if there's ever an application where you think crowdsourcing could make a difference or help position you as that innovation expert, or even just bring some really cool new capabilities and insights to your client, we as MindSumo are happy to take those topics and those ideas that you have and actually frame them up for your clients. We will do that 100% free of charge with no commitment from your client to actually launch it, just as a way to show them this is what a challenge would look like if you wanted to build in crowdsourcing and open innovation as part of this project that we're working on. We feel really confidently that when companies get a chance to see that tangible resource of a mocked up challenge draft, that really generates a lot of excitement. It gets people sharing it in staff meeting, it gets them emailing their colleagues, and hopefully that can be a way not only to generate more excitement from within your clients for the work you're doing for them, but hopefully also even get them to share these types of resources to potentially get you more business as well, because word is getting out around the organization that they're doing some really cool things with crowdsourcing and innovation. And then as far as kind of business and revenue opportunities for you and how MindSumo as part of the MBO ecosystem can help bring those opportunities to you, I want to focus on a few things here. One is, MindSumo historically, we have really focused, as I mentioned, on that top of the innovation funnel, the ideation piece, the concept generation piece, co-creation. But a lot of times clients would finish a challenge and say to us, we've gotten all of these great ideas. We really want to move forward with them. What's the next step? And historically, we've kind of had to shrug our shoulders a little bit and say, well, we currently don't have the capabilities to help you implement and execute, but get back to us. We'll work on it. We'll try to make that happen. However, now that MindSumo is part of MBO, it plugs us into this amazing network of tens of thousands of ICs like yourselves who have those capabilities to be able to take challenge outcomes and then help a client actually implement and execute that and turn that into a real strategy, which can be brought to bear within the company. And so I think that's one of the most exciting parts of this new chapter for MindSumo as part of MBO, is that hopefully through our challenges, we can identify clients who can then be passed along to members of the MBO community, those ICs who are able to come in and say, hey, I would love to work with you on this challenge and help you actually implement and execute the solutions that you get at the end. And so that's one area where we're really excited, where we feel there's a lot of potential. Secondly, we are actually planning right now a reseller program for 2021, which could help you also receive a slice of revenue from challenges your clients launch. Because MindSumo, as we've been talking about, hopefully can be a great resource that you can bring to your clients. But we want to reward you for those times when you're able to bring MindSumo into the conversation and get your clients excited about using crowdsourcing. And so we're still working through those details right now. But something that I'm really excited about is rolling out this reseller program in the new year, so that as you're having conversations with clients, when there's an opportunity where you think this could be a perfect fit for something like MindSumo, we want to reward you for passing those opportunities along to us. And hopefully it can be really a mutually beneficial experience where we're both winning, being able to get more challenges launched, but also positioning you as the innovation expert with those clients. And then the last thing is just the opportunity to become a MindSumo user if you'd like. I mentioned that we focus on Millennial and Gen Z, but now that we are joining the MBO community, we know how much high quality talent there is within MBO. And we want to encourage you guys to check the platform out and try solving a challenge. Because if you can solve challenges, first off, there is a monetary reward. You can win prizes in that respect, but it's also a great way to position yourself in front of these Fortune 500 brands that we work with on a regular basis. Because we've had hundreds of companies approach us throughout their challenges saying, hey, what if we want to hire someone out of this? Or what if we want to continue working with someone out of this? Are we able to do that through the MindSumo platform? And so through your participation in MindSumo challenges, you can actually not only give companies some really cool insights in how you can be a valuable resource for them, but you can tell them in your solution, I would love to continue working with you on this. There's a direct messaging feature between the solvers and the companies so that you can open up dialogues and conversations and actually hopefully win business by participating as a MindSumo solver. And I want to kick it back to Linda for a second, because as we were exploring this MindSumo MBO relationship, Linda actually had the chance to experience firsthand what it's like to be a MindSumo solver. So I'd love for her to tell us a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, thanks, Keaton. So I'm a big fan of experiencing things firsthand. So when I learned of MindSumo, I went out and explored the challenges. And while I am far from the target demographic, in fact, I think my kids are in the demographic, not me, I'll tell you, it was very insightful. So I think it's insightful in two ways. One is I have an appreciation for the experience the problem solver goes through. the client tees up the problem in a very specific way, it really draws the problem solvers in to think about unique solutions, and they're very specific about the types of information they want from you as you're teeing up what your solution is. You can do things like share your ideas with other people. So I shared it with my kids and my coworkers. I think I shared it with Miles and Jean, and had them have them help and pitch in. So you can sort of do like a mini crowdsourcing off on the side. So it's a very actually fun experience for the problem solver. And then I actually made it to the leaderboard, which is why I have this fantastic crown on my head. And while I can't quit my day job yet, it was actually really fun to win. It was a nice little extra amount of money. But I think, you know, as you think about how can you use this platform with your clients, I would really encourage you to go out there and participate. There's no cost to try. All you do is go out there. It takes like 10 seconds to create a profile. You can see all the different challenges that are out there. You can participate, and you really get a firsthand experience of what crowdsourcing is like and what this platform is like. And that way you'll be in a much better position to talk about it with your clients. And I guarantee you, you'll have a lot of fun in the process, and you too might even earn a crown like me. So thanks, Keaton.
Thanks, Linda. Yeah, it was fun for me when I was taking a look at the dashboard for this challenge, and I saw Linda's name on it. It was just a fun surprise. But yeah, Linda shows you that, you know, if you participate in these, you could be chosen as a winner too. We all want to be like Linda. So before we wrap up and get into the Q&A section, I just want to highlight some of the key takeaways that we've discussed today. One is using crowdsourcing and open innovation to really help position yourself as an innovation expert for your clients. You know, we as MindSumo are incredibly excited to be part of MBO Partners now. And really, we are just looking for ways that we can help bring value, not only to MBO as a company, but even more so to the MBO talent community. Folks like yourselves who are looking for new ways to stand out to their clients, who are looking for new capabilities through MBO to help make you more competitive and to give you an advantage. I really feel strongly that crowdsourcing and open innovation can be one of those resources. And so that's first and foremost one of the things I want you to walk away with from this webinar. Secondly, that this is already a proven model when it comes to consultants, whether it's big companies or ICs. As I mentioned, we've done hundreds of these challenges where people have been launching them on behalf of their clients. And so this is a model that we're very comfortable with. We've done it many, many times. And so whenever you have the interest in wanting to try something like this out, don't think like you have to figure this out on your own. You know, we have a lot of experience in this realm, and we're happy to guide you through that process. Some of those business and revenue opportunities we discussed, whether it's helping to implement challenge solutions for clients who are using MindSumo, becoming a reseller in the new year, or becoming a challenge solver. You know, there are a number of different ways for you to continue to explore and to figure out if MindSumo can be a platform which can bring value to your day-to-day. And so just keeping that in mind as you're thinking about new ways, you know, we're all in the midst of kind of 2021 planning and thinking, what are we going to do better? What are we going to do differently? This could be another arrow in your quiver to help really make sure that you can stand out in 2021 to the clients that you're working with, and hopefully help you to land some new clients as well. And then to tie a bow on it, getting started with a free challenge draft for any interested client that you have. Again, this link down at the bottom, if you go to this link, it takes you to a form, which is what we use to kind of source those questions that we need to be able to create these challenge drafts. And so if you do have an idea for a challenge topic, or if you have a client where you want to present them with a challenge topic to say, this is something we could do, we as MindSumo are more than happy to work with you to make that happen, because we've seen that is the best way to get people excited about a challenge, is to first give them that draft so that they can start to understand what it means and it becomes more real for them. So hopefully you learned a lot in this webinar, and there was valuable content for you. I saw that we had some questions coming in over the course of the webinar, so I'm going to throw it back to Asya now, who can help moderate some of those questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Keaton. Definitely seeing a lot of questions come through, and I will share them with you one by one. So one of the first questions that came up was around the pricing. So the question was asked, and it was around pricing and commission. I know you touched on that a little bit. What is the cost of running a challenge? That's something you're able to share. Is that something that is different in different scenarios, and how does commission around that work if somebody were to share as a broker?
Yeah, great question. So currently the pricing for MindSumo challenges is broken into basically an all-inclusive flat fee that covers everything I mentioned in that challenge process. So starting with MindSumo's assistance in creating the challenge, the launch and the distribution and filtering, full account management throughout the challenge so that they have someone who's there to help manage the experience. And then obviously at the end, all of the IP from the ideas and solutions that are submitted. What I didn't mention is that it also includes the rewards that are paid to the winners of the challenges. And it also includes MindSumo taking care of the distribution of those rewards. And that's all bundled into a flat fee of $10,000. And then the more challenges a client purchases, the cheaper that price per challenge becomes. So for example, if you're buying a bundle of 3 challenges, you get that for, $24,000 or $8,000 a challenge. If you buy 5 challenges, it's going to be even lower. One thing that I will also mention is, as it relates to pricing, we're actually exploring some different ways to potentially shake up the model as well and offer lower price, more self-serve alternatives for clients who don't necessarily need that really kind of high touch personalized account management experience. And so we'll have more information on that coming in the new year as well, along with those commission amounts. Because as I mentioned, right now we're still working through the details of the reseller program and what specifically that's going to look like for people who are interested. And so hopefully in the coming weeks, I'll be able to share that information and let people know, hey, if you are interested in this reseller idea, these are the commission breakdowns and what those percentages will look like.
Wonderful. You mentioned the question of IP, and one of the questions was around confirming how the IP works. So could you just touch on that a little bit, just to make sure that individuals understand the IP part of the process?
Definitely. Yeah. So the way that the IP works is all of our MindSumo users, when they sign up, as part of the terms and conditions, it stipulates that the IP from the ideas that are submitted to challenges becomes owned by the challenge host, so the company that is doing the challenge. For that reason, that's a big part of why when we do these challenges, we try to focus on kind of the top of the innovation funnel, because we don't want people to necessarily be spending weeks or months on a solution and they don't get anything from it. Oftentimes, it's more of those high level ideas. You may spend an hour, 2 hours on a challenge, and then you may win a few $100s as a result from the prize. But the IP is owned by the companies that are hosting the challenges. And that's all stipulated in the terms and conditions that the users agree to when they sign up.
Perfect. So in terms of not-for-profits, we have somebody who asked if there is special pricing for not-for-profits. Is that something that MindSumo has considered or could consider in the future?
Definitely. We've actually done a number of challenges with not-for-profits in the past. And whether it's not-for-profits or universities, we are very eager and open to working with all types of organizations. And in fact, not-for-profits get some of our highest engagement, especially when their challenges focus on a little bit more of a social good. There's a lot of interest and participation from our community for those types of challenges, just because I think it's a great way not only to contribute ideas, but you feel like you're impacting an organization that's doing some really good things. And so if there are not-for-profits that are interested in MindSumo, we are happy to discuss special pricing because we want to make sure that we can make MindSumo a tool available to them as well.
Wonderful. So another question that came up was, it's an interesting one. I'm actually intrigued to hear the answer too, which is the shortest time frame you've gotten results in. So if someone has just a real-time need, how does MindSumo play into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you said that question, the first thought that came into my mind was Deloitte. So we work a lot with Deloitte, and they really like quick turnarounds. And so most of their challenges had probably an average duration of 3 to 5 days, I would say, for how long their challenge is open. What we will do with those unique cases where we need a really fast turnaround is we'll do a lot of extra kind of blasting and promotion of the challenge to our users. And we will make it very clear that this is a short challenge experience so that they don't think, oh, I can just worry about this in a couple of weeks. So typically the challenges are going to last anywhere from, like I said, that 7 to 30 days. But we've done dozens of challenges which have been sub 1 week if we need to. That's definitely something the platform can handle. It makes our heart race a little faster and makes things a little more stressful on our end, but we definitely can deliver for those short challenges as well.
Fantastic. So someone had a question about, and this is probably a more experienced consultant, maybe used to different price points. So why the price money is low relatively as compared to the size of the project. So the example, a new product, but the reward was $1,600 that this question was asked around. So helping us to understand how the reward system works for MindSumo and why it's set up the way it is when we're thinking about more experienced consultants considering a challenge.
Sure. Yeah, great question. So our reward system, a lot of it is built on the fact that we generally have a pretty young user base. The community that we're focusing on, lots of university folks, millennials, Gen Zs, and so for that reason, our rewards are going to be lower than other platforms where you're doing a lot of really experienced or deep work that requires a lot of expertise. Because the challenges that we do, it's not so much the expertise, it's much more about the creativity and the ideas that are coming out of it. And so it doesn't require the advanced degrees. It doesn't require, like I said, you to be working for weeks and weeks on a solution. It's really about who can come up with an awesome creative idea. And if you can do that in an hour and you are chosen as a winner and you get $200 from that, we feel like that's pretty good compensation for something like that, especially if you're a young person. We always like to joke, if you're stacking books at the campus library and do that for 2 hours, you're definitely not going to get the same experience as if you spend an hour on a MindSumo challenge and get a couple $100 from that. And so I totally understand the question for a more experienced consultant. One thing that I will say is, as MindSumo relates to this audience and the folks on this webinar, I would think of MindSumo much in terms of if you chose to participate in a challenge as a solver, I would think of it much more as a way to get yourself in front of Fortune 500 companies, which could lead to additional work, as opposed to something that's going to really be a meaningful income generator for you. Because the types of challenges that we do, you're not going to make a full-time living on MindSumo right now in this point in time. However, if you can do 3 challenges and one of those turns into an actual engagement with a new client, that could represent real substantive and meaningful revenue for years to come if you can build that relationship and really stand out and show them and impress them through the challenge why you would be a good choice to work with. And so that's what I would say to someone who's thinking about those rewards. If you are an experienced consultant and you want to participate, view it much more as an investment in business development, as opposed to a way that you're going to make a lot of money by participating in the challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would just chime in there, Keaton, and as MindSumo becomes more and more part of the MBO platform, I think we're going to see it evolve in a variety of ways, right? Like Keaton mentioned, more of a lighter self-service model where some of our ICs could probably do a lot of the facilitation. It becomes more of a tool in their toolbox for how they work with their clients. So it'd be at a lower price point. Also, now that we have this whole different group of talent, right, I could see some of the challenges maybe taking on a bit of a different spin where people want to really leverage that type of talent. And there's also the idea where people can launch a challenge to a specific population of people, right? So maybe they'll say, I want to launch this challenge to these types of people, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways this will continue to evolve. We're in the very early days. And part of the reason we're doing things like this webcast is we would love any of your feedback, thoughts, ideas around this as we're figuring out how to really make this a useful tool for everyone.
Yeah, and I would just really quickly, I would chime into what Linda said. It is important to remember that MindSumo in its current state will not necessarily be MindSumo in its state 3 months from now because of how all of these opportunities we're looking at and how to leverage it within the MBO platform. And so whether it's private challenges, which were only geared towards experienced consultants, it would make a lot of sense if we did something like that. The rewards could be, triple or quadruple what they are now. So there's a lot of different ways that I think we're going to be able to evolve and iterate on the platform to make it, not only better, but hopefully more applicable for folks like yourselves as well.
Absolutely. One of the things that I had a question come through on was around the question of targeting that Linda mentioned. So how, as somebody who is seeking to maybe deploy a challenge on behalf of a partner, how does that targeting work? And how could somebody who's thinking about doing something with a client that is interested in the subgroup work with MindSumo?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are a couple of different ways. If you're planning on trying to use the platform to leverage the MindSumo existing audience of solvers, then we can target within our database by a number of different demographic traits or location traits. So for example, if you wanted to target people in a certain geography, if you wanted to target people of a certain socioeconomic status, whatever it is, we can use the profile information that MindSumo gathers on our users to target that way. So that's one path towards making it happen. But alluding to what Linda was saying, MindSumo also has the ability to white label our challenges so that they can be actually sent out to different audiences that aren't currently on the MindSumo platform. And so, for example, if you had a client who wanted to do this type of innovation work, but wanted to do it within their own company and invite their own employees to participate, then we can create a private white label challenge where anyone from that company would be able to participate, but it would be kept private to that audience. And so no one else on MindSumo would have access to it. It wouldn't be visible to MindSumo's normal cohort of users. And through those white label capabilities, it gives us a lot of flexibility to help clients launch challenges for very distinct, specific audiences that they want to engage, even if that goes outside of the MindSumo network that we have built. I think you're muted.
Questions that came up. Yes, I just realized I had muted myself to make sure there wasn't background noise. One of the questions that came up is probably not something you could answer today on screen, but might be interesting as a future opportunity, which is, what does the actual output that is given to the client, what does it look like? So if you could talk about it and share a little bit about what that output looks like, I'm sure people would love to at least be able to try to visualize it. And maybe that is part of a follow-up one-to-one conversation with those that are interested.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, so as far as the output at the end of a challenge, I mentioned earlier that all of our clients get an online dashboard where they are able to log in and see all of these solutions and ideas as they're submitted. And so a lot of it depends on what is being requested from the user. For example, let's say that it's that packaging challenge that we talked about with Kimberly Clark. As part of that, the solution is probably going to look like a written document or a written solution where the user is able to outline their idea and provide any reasoning or research or background for it, along with some sort of attachment which shows that artistic rendering or mock-up of what the idea is going to look like. Other clients may ask for a video submission. They may ask for people to submit videos talking about their ideas. So really there is different flexibility to be able to ask for different file formats and things like that, depending on what the what the kind of preferred vehicle or the preferred medium is for the client. But typically it's going to be some sort of written solution, and then usually with supporting documentation, whether that's an artistic rendering or a mock-up or additional research or PowerPoint slides. That's how most of these challenges are structured as far as what the output's going to be. And then within the dashboard, MindSumo provides some reporting capabilities to help our clients be able to take all of these solutions that you're getting and turn that into a report where you can actually look at some of the broader trends that you're finding across the challenge. You can click in individually to the submissions and see those as well, but something which can be used more as like a final follow-up report, which can be shared with the client to say, here's both a broad overview of what we found as well as the individual results if you want to take a look at them.
Perfect. That's fantastic. So I think we're seeing that the questions are now wrapping up. And I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, but this was fantastic. And I personally feel like, even though Keaton, I've enjoyed working with you as a fellow startup founder and a fellow member at MBO, I learned quite a bit from this. I have one final question because I'm curious about this myself, having come from the CPG industry, and I thought that could be a nice way for us to wrap up, which is, what is your busiest season? And by asking that question, it's almost asking about, when do your clients utilize MindSumo the most? Is there seasonality to what you do? Is there a time of year where people should be getting ready to think about working with MindSumo and planning ahead for that? Love to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So historically, the first quarter has always been a busy time for us. And I think that's because anytime there's a fresh start, there's a new year, people are always kind of looking for new solutions. They're looking for, what can we do differently this year? What can we change? People are making their goals, making their resolutions. And I think that falls into kind of the corporate space too. And so when they think of something like crowdsourcing and innovation and just starting off the year with a lot of creativity and lots of new ideas that can help push the business forward, that's always a busy time of year for us. I would say beginning of the year and end of the year. And the end of the year is largely driven more by people having leftover budget, if I'm being perfectly honest, to say, hey, we've got some budget. Let's do some cool crowdsourcing projects. But we see good engagement throughout the year. But if I had to choose, the beginning of the year is probably the most exciting time, just because a lot of people are trying to approach the year with that fresh start and wanting to inject a lot of new innovation and creativity into the things that they're working on.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you, Linda, and thank you, Keaton, for sharing this content with our provider community. And one of the things that we will do is to share out the webinar recording to our those that have registered and attended, and also share out future events. Really importantly, if you would like to continue a conversation one-on-one with Keaton, we've popped up his contact information, Swett@mbopartners.com. I would reach out and have a direct discussion, either whether it's about commission, introduction, revenue opportunities, or more on being a solver. And you can, of course, learn more about MindSumo at mindsumo.com/business. Thank you very much again. This was fantastic. And thank you to everybody that was online. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.